Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ice Cold Takes podcast. I'm your host, Joey DeMeglio, and this week, Drew Way is back to talk about the Nils Lundkvist trade that happened on Monday, as well as the start of training camp. And then we'll talk about analytics, which I love to do whenever Drew is on. Welcome back to the show, Drew. How are you?
This is weird. I thought you were bringing me on to talk about how much better Aaron Judge is than Pete Alonso, but
Yeah.
I guess we can talk about the Rangers if you want.
We can talk about that after. I was gonna say, like, people I keep hearing that conversation. Oh, Otani for MVP. Nah, man, it's Judge
Are-
for MVP.
You're a Mets fan, right? Or am I getting
I
that wrong?
I am a Mets fan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. That's unfortunate for you.
Uh, Good year so far.
Nah, they're fun. They're fun. But yeah, cool. I'm down to take this wherever you want. So let's get to it.
Yeah. So I mean, on Monday, Nils Lundkvist gets traded to the Dallas Stars for a conditional first rounder in 2023 and a conditional fourth rounder in 2025. Obviously, if you kept up with the news, he was wanting out because he didn't see a way to establish himself on this Rangers lineup. He's on behind the likes of Adam Fox, Keandre Miller, and Jacob Trouba. All those guys probably going to get power play time. Don't know about Miller. We know Fox is getting PP one time, but Lundqvist was, to me, I talked to you about this, Drew, that, Lundqvist, to me, his biggest skill was, he's a quarterbacking power play defenseman. And we already have that in Adam Fox. So to me, I think this is a good trade for Chris Drury. I thought he got enough back for him, especially considering he was what, 27th, 28th overall pick in 2018.
Yeah. I would say that considering the circumstances, Drury did nicely, but Drury was also part of the reason why the circumstances were what they were. All things considered, I thought it was a good job by Drury, but a couple of things I bring up. One, Lundqvist's probably best skill is his transitional game, which this team could use. So I would push back a little bit. Like yes, he's very good. He's a good power play quarterback, but he's been miscast. I've seen a lot of people be like, "Oh, he's just some offensive defenseman." He's not. He's actually considerably better at defense than Zach
He's
Jones
two
is.
way. He's two
Yeah,
way.
he's a two-way player who's excellent in transition, who also has a very good shot from the outside, hence why he was always getting a lot of power play time in Sweden. Just 2 years ago, he won the award for the best Swedish-born defenseman playing in the SHL. So 2 seasons ago, as was a 21-year-old, he was breaking SHL records. He was easily considered one of the best defensive prospects in the entire NHL. And then things went sour. And so I would say this isn't quite like the Kravtsov situation. Like the Kravtsov situation, honestly, like that was probably just as much, if not more, the Rangers' fault than Kravtsov's. And I'm not going to relitigate that, but just at the very least, it was 50-50 in terms of where the blame lies for how that situation went. With Elias Anderson, probably more the Rangers' fault than anything, given everything we've learned since then and all the shit that Elias had to put up with. With Lundqvist, yes, it was a bit more of him taking his ball and going home than the Rangers necessarily doing anything to him in particular. But at the same time, a couple things like one, like he is absolutely NHL ready. He can play in the NHL right now and make an impact. And obviously, the Dallas Stars think that, hence why they gave up the package they did for him. But two, he was correct in his assumption that he did not have an immediate path to the NHL, and the Rangers made that clear to him. Obviously, on the right side, you got Fox and you got Trouba. Those are the no-brainers they're starting. And then last year, Braden Schneider, I'll still, willing to argue whether or not who is the better overall player, Schneider or Lundqvist, especially in terms of ceiling. But the Rangers made it known that Schneider is the player that better suits what they're looking for right now, and made it known to Lundqvist that it's pretty unlikely that you're going to win the spot over Schneider. And so the option was either play on your offhand and beat Zach Jones, who's also a very good player, or you're playing in Hartford. And so at that point, his agent, Claude Lemieux, who is known for being a dickhead and who has a son who's a massive dickhead, decided to kind of take this route. I should be very clear. Like, I've spoken to a couple people about this, and there's a few things here. Like, one, Claude Lemieux is the one most behind the trade demand and deciding to take this tactic. This was not Nils Lundkvist deciding this is the route I think we should go. This was Claude Lemieux saying this is the route I think we should go for your best interest. He might be right. I mean, sucks for the Rangers, sucks for Ranger fans, given the position you put Drury and the team in. But this was just as much Claude Lemieux's doing as it was Nils Lundkvist doing in terms of the way this played out. And just like, all things considered, this is one of those situations that kind of just sucks for all parties. Like Nils Lundkvist, he was fine last year. Anyone that says that Schneider clearly proved that he's better than him last year doesn't know their ass from their elbows. Like you look at the analytics or the tape, both were fine relative to their age. Schneider had a couple more moments that popped on the screen. And like
Exactly.
I posted this the other day on Twitter and people like arguing me. I had some dickhead like, "Oh, you don't watch the games." And then he called him unnoticeable. I'm like, if you're describing a 21-year-old defenseman playing the third pair anchored to Patrick Nemeth as unnoticeable, that's a compliment. Like clearly you don't
Right.
know what you clearly don't know how to analyze defensemen, especially young defensemen in the NHL playing in a system like Gerard Galland's. If your main method of analysis is how many times are you popping off the screen. And like, yes, Schneider had a couple really nice plays that we all remember. He also had a couple way more terrible plays, I would say, than Lundkvist did. I think he had a higher variance game despite his reputation for being a more steady player. Point is, Schneider did well enough to prove himself. I thought Lundkvist did well enough to prove that he's an NHL player. I've been told by literally a scout with the Rangers that they view internally Lundkvist as the higher ceiling player than Schneider, but Schneider brings the style of game they want more on the right side, given the fact that Adam Fox and Trouba are there. And there's this misconception that Trouba is some stay-at-home defensive defenseman. Bullshit. Anyone that thinks that Jacob Trouba is a defensive defenseman, again, has no idea what they're watching or how to analyze hockey. Jacob Trouba is more offense than defense. There's a reason why he's been on the power play too. There's a reason why he's put up some of the counting stats that he has over his career. And there's a reason why he was at his best in Winnipeg when he was paired with a true defensive defenseman. So you have Fox, who is obviously Adam Fox, Trouba, who's more offense than defense, but he just hits hard. So everyone just assumes that means he's defensive. So they wanted a actual defensive defenseman as that third right-hand player, and that is Schneider. And Schneider deserves tons of props. He's done great. He's proven me wrong when I threw a temper tantrum when we traded up to draft him. And it's just that the byproduct was that Lundkvist rightfully understood there was no space for him on this roster, and then his camp decided to take their ball and go home.
I like that you brought up the fact, like, the Rangers mishandled the Elias Anderson situation, because I do think that happened. And then the Kravtsov situation. If you're a fan and you're seeing, oh, this is another Rangers draft pick or another European or whatever, non-American, whatever you're thinking that is off the team shortly after they're drafted, like 3-4 years after they're drafted. I mean, in this case, Nils Lundkvist has a justified reason. He's too good to be a third pair defenseman, I think. Yeah. And when you compare Schneider and Lundkvist, Schneider made the bigger impact, but Lundkvist wasn't bad. I didn't have
I
a
would
problem with Lundkvist.
I would say Schneider made the bigger impact in both directions. He had games where he was
Yeah.
truly abhorrent, way worse than Lundkvist ever was. But then he had games where his ceiling was way better than Lundkvist ever was. And so that's kind of what I meant before. He was he was the higher variance player. He made the bigger impact both positively and negatively, where Lundkvist was clearly kind of just trying to fit in and you know, not mess up. And it's kind
Mhm.
of reminiscent of what we've seen from Kako and Lafreniere early on, where it's clear the coaching was done in such a way where the players were almost afraid to play their game and in essence playing to not screw up as opposed to playing to try to win.
And to break two things that I want to mention, that you said that it's like the ebbs and the flows. But for Schneider's game score, I think it was you that posted it, or somebody on your thing, on your thread posted it. His highs were really high, but his lows were really, really low. So
Yeah.
there's that. And then Nils Lundkvist was more straight, like just
Yes.
straight
Nils
across the
Lundkvist
board.
was more steady Eddie, and Schneider. And again, this isn't necessarily a knock on him. This is just he's a young player who's a physical player. And in being young, not used to the NHL speed, but used to trying to use your body, make hits and stuff like that, there were a lot of instances where he was chasing the hit, would miss the hit because he's not used to, NHL players are twice as fast as the WHL players I was just playing against. They'd go by him and then create a high quality scoring chance, and that would kind of kill his game score in that aspect. So that's sort of what was happening there. And I thought in the playoffs, especially against Tampa, Schneider was exposed pretty badly.
Yeah, a
I'm
couple
happy if
times.
you
Yeah.
want to, if you want to argue me, that's fine. But like that's just kind of my like eye test take on that. But again, like I don't want to make this sound like I'm criticizing Schneider because I think Schneider's done great, especially for how young he is. Like I've been really impressed with him, and I'm saying that as someone that was really critical of that pick. Like he was really impressed me. It's just he's how well he's done so early on, and the fact that again, I was literally told by a Ranger scout that's just the style that they feel they need more than Lundkvist right now. It just Lundkvist doesn't have a spot on this roster barring injury.
The same, I think when people say that Schneider is better than Lundkvist, it's the same reason people say that Trouba is a stand-up defenseman, a defensive defenseman, meaning Trouba
Meaning
has
they don't know what
those
the hell they're talking about.
that's it's just like the size debate, but the reason is Trouba makes every now and then these huge ginormous body checks, and that's what stands out. That's what makes the impact. But then, like,
Yeah.
lost in all of that is, off his offense, he steps up so frequently. He pinches like almost
He can't handle
all
the
the time.
puck at the blue line, which
Right,
he's get
yeah.
how many breakaways against?
And then in Schneider's case, talk about an immediate impact. Everyone remembers first game, first goal. And, he played in the playoffs down the stretch. That's a huge impact. That's what people remember. They don't remember his lows. People
Well,
don't
they should
remember.
remember his lows because some of his lows came against Tampa, but
Right.
everyone remembers Trouba's lows against Tampa, but
Yep.
conveniently forgive Schneider for that.
Exactly.
Now, I
Yeah,
mean,
so
again,
that's what I
kidding is
noticed.
yeah, no, and again, I don't want to be critical of Schneider because I think he's done great, and I think he's got a bright future in this league. I don't think he's really got top pairing potential unless you're talking like a Ryan Lindgren type, where it's like, well, you're on the top pair because you're a very good skill set fit with the true top pairing defenseman. But I think Schneider's got a long career as a very good second pair reliable defensive guy who can strike a little bit of fear in the heart of the opponents if they're gonna, go skating through the middle with their head down.
And for Lundkvist, I don't see this as why didn't you just report to camp and try harder or whatever. I see this as like this is different. This is different because what are the chances that Nils Lundkvist becomes Adam Fox?
Very low. And I'll say this though, like I understand the criticism of Lundkvist here more than the criticism of Kravtsov and Anderson in the past. For the most part, I found people who like really heavily criticized Kravtsov and Anderson was like your Simpsons mean old white guy, get off my lawn yelling at the clouds, whatever, Um, I think it's fair to say, like, yes, Lundkvist decided, well, I'm not going to win this, so I'm taking my ball and going home. And so I understand the criticism. I don't agree. And again, like I said, I shouldn't say I don't agree. Like, I personally wouldn't criticize him because I get where he's coming from. And again, as I've said, I've been told by in no uncertain terms that the decision to handle this the way they did was Claude Lemieux's, not Nils Lundkvist's. But you can understand it. He was told this is the deal, and the Rangers, again, I've spoken to their own scouts, and they've said, this is the deal, this is true. And so you can understand him being like, well, I don't want to be sitting here playing in frickin' Hartford. I mean, hell, people who live in fucking Hartford don't want to be living in Hartford. Why should some kid from Sweden want to be over in Hartford playing when he can go to Dallas and, say what you want about the political environment down there, but like, it's a pretty nice place to live and play and no income tax and all that. So, he's probably going to be playing on their second pair with either like an Essa Lindell or possibly a Miro Heiskanen. Like he is set up to do well in Dallas.
And also Hartford, if he plays in the minors, he doesn't get as much money as if he would in the NHL or if he went back to Sweden. Well, there's that decision. There's that
well, but
thing that you
more
have to
than
consider
not making
too.
as much money, he's living in Hartford. I mean, let's be real.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I've never been to Connecticut. I have been to Texas though. I
Never
did go
been
to
to
Austin.
Connecticut, dude.
I've
You've
only
been
been
to.
there in passing, and the only thing I know is there's like a bunch of McDonald's there. That's it.
The one thing I know, and in the off chance that Joe Fortunato is listening, is that New Haven pizza is overrated.
New World Pizza is where it's at.
Not Chris Jury. Is that Chris Jury's place? That's
No,
in
that's
Connecticut.
my
Oh, that's
pizzeria.
your place. Because Chris Jury owns a couple. What is I forget what it's called, but he owns a couple pizza places in Connecticut as well.
Little League Pizza.
Yeah,
I don't
right.
know.
Derek,
Um,
I love Derek Jeter pizza.
right. And also to add on to the terms of the Lundkvist trade, the 2023 first rounder, which is the main package going the other way, coming towards the Rangers. That's top 10 protected. If Dallas is a top 10 pick in the draft, the pick slides to 2024 and is unprotected.
Yeah, and so we'll talk about that now. And it's that was again. Let's put aside the thoughts and the conversation about what led everything to get to the point where it was, where Lundqvist camp was publicly demanding a
Right.
trade.
Right.
Given the fact that the entire league knew that Lundqvist wanted out, I thought this was a good deal for Drury. And this isn't your typical whatever mid-round pick. Like this draft, like yes, everyone knows about Connor Bedard and Matvey Michkov and how loaded this draft is at the top. This isn't just the draft that's loaded at the top. This draft is loaded throughout. Literally, like I was looking through some of the my own draft analysis and stuff like that. And for anyone, like most people listening, I'm assume know that I do a lot of like the draft stuff for Blueshirts Breakaway. But kind of my process is I sort of I watch these games, I look at the stats, and I just take notes throughout the year, and then use those notes plus the stats plus the footage I've watched. Slow. I have a spreadsheet that I'm constantly tweaking my rankings. And legitimately, like there are players that are projected right now to go 13, 14, 15 that would have arguably been top 5 last year. So this is not just a draft that's deep, that's loaded at the top. It's deep throughout the entire class. And like a perfect example, and like this is one that like I think Chris Drury would really, really love, is when you're looking at like that the late lottery or early just out of the lottery picks, it's loaded at center. And there are 3 kids from the US development program who the scout I told you that I've spoken to at the Rangers, he's joked to me that the Rangers literally live in Michigan, just constantly scouting the U.S. development program, which makes sense. There's juries from there, stuff like that, and they're a really, really strong program. You have a
And
kid named
Trouba's the assistant GM too, right?
right, exactly. So you got a kid named Will Smith, who's like a 6-foot center for the development program. Yes, his name is Will Smith. No, he has not smacked Chris Rock, but he's kind of like your very cerebral type. Think of like an Artemi Panarin play style, but at center. And that's like the lazy way to explain the way Will Smith's game is. He's not gonna necessarily pop off the screen in terms like, oh my God, he's a blazer, or oh my God, he's got some Austin Matthews style shot. But he's very cerebral, really good skater, really good at avoiding people hitting him, and just very almost like squirmy with the way he's constantly able to evade pressure, find the soft space in the ice, and then set up his teammates. Definitely pass first more than shoot first, which when you're talking center, that's good. Most centers are facilitators. It's pretty rare to have the Mika Zibanejad or Austin Matthews type center where they're the main scorer. So Will Smith is a dynamic playmaker who, again, his style of play kind of reminds you a little bit of Panarin, where it's like, it's somehow he never ever seems to take a big hit with the way he's just able to outthink the opponents and evade pressure. And then you have another kid from the program who's now going to be playing in college named Charlie Strammel. And this is like, any boomer listen to this will love Charlie Strammel. He's 6'3", like 215 pure muscle. And it's just a freaking freight train with an absolute howitzer of a shot. And then on top of that, he's actually a pretty intelligent player too. But he's your prototypical big, strong, mean, power forward type center who also has a pretty good defensive game and a pretty good like cerebral game to that. And then you also have a kid named Oliver Moore, again, center for the U.S. development program team. And he's more of like the kind of dynamic type. He had, I want to say it was a hand injury or a wrist injury last year that kept him out of a decent amount of the season. But he's the type that I'm blanking on like who do you want to describe this way, but like very patient with the puck. he'll kind of hold on to the puck a little long, and you'll be wondering like, what is he doing? And then all of a sudden he'll deke the defender, and then you'll notice him hanging on and doing what he did. All of a sudden, sprung someone to get wide open, make that pass, and then he'll pass up like the okay play for the great play. He's a very fast skater, especially like in straight lines and quick acceleration. And he's got a decent shot too. And then on top of them, you have a couple Swedish kids who can play center or play wing, and you have a couple kids from the CHL who also are centers that are all in this range. And like, I'm rambling, I'm going on and on here, but like, you tell me just based off of what I've said, like these sound like pretty good players, right? Like these are the kind of
Yeah.
guys you can get around 15 next year. So if the Rangers hold on to the pick, you can get a player that will probably be their best prospect next year. And the prospect pool is getting pretty thin. Like we get it. We love Brendan
Okay.
Othman,
Right.
and we love, Adam Sikora. It was a good pick and stuff like that. But like we're very thin at the top of our prospect pool right now. You can draft a kid next year in the 15-20 range. That'll be your best prospect, assuming Brendan Othman graduates. But even not, that can compete with him for the top spot. And then if you don't take the pick, this is a much more valuable asset than your prototypical first round pick is. So if your thought is to either trade it for a deadline acquisition, trade it in the offseason to pick up someone big, use it to shed a terrible salary, or use it to trade up, like this is a much more valuable, mid first round pick than a typical year.
That's the trade deadline stuff is what I've heard about too. I was listening to Mercogliano's podcast a bit about that, and he was saying that it's possible they could use it as ammo in the trade at the trade deadline as they did last year. We don't know. I don't know how much cap space they're going to have. I gotta ask Stat Miner.
Not Micah. Yeah, no, I think last I checked, I'm in a group chat with him and chat with Micah all the time. But Micah's hockey stat miner for those that don't know. Right now they're projected to have only really around 4 to 4.5 million, barring injury, that allows you to put someone big on long-term LTIR.
Yeah, and so that's crazy. That's crazy. What was once a deep prospect pool is now, not as deep because
Well,
all of our prospects are now on the
yeah,
roster.
our deep prospect pool was Shesterkin, Kravtsov, Lafreniere,
Fox,
Kakko,
yeah.
and
Well,
Adam
Fox
Fox.
wasn't. Yeah, Fox wasn't.
No, he
Didn't
was.
even.
Yeah, he was for a while. He was part of it. When
Eh,
we traded for him, he was like, "Hey, this should be the number one prospect." I think that was the first year I put out like Rangers prospect rankings, and I put him as the number one prospect, and people like yelled at me. I'm like, "I'm telling you, he's gonna
Oh
be
God,
awesome."
yeah,
Yeah,
no,
it's
no. People
adorable.
had no I. People had no idea. I had no idea how much of an immediate impact he was
He
going to
was
be. He came in
crazy
day.
good.
He came in day one, and he's already a top 2 defenseman. I'm
Well,
like,
what's hilarious is like the people that like would try argue me about Fox are the same kinds of people that will yell at me for like the other day when I posted kind of like the charts, just to be like, I'm telling you, Lundkvist and Schneider are about the same. Watch the game. I'm like, yeah, dickhead, I watched all of Fox. And where were you yelling at me to watch
that's
the game back then when I was telling you how good he was?
That's how they get the charts, though, from watching the game, right?
They're so stupid.
That's
Well, the charts, to their point, the charts are largely an algorithm that's pulling data from the NHL database. The charts that are from watching the game are Corey Schneider. His last name's spelled like it looks like Schnadger or something like that. He's the one that
yeah.
always
It's
has the
spelled real
Pokemon.
funky.
Yeah, and he's always got like a Pokemon or something as a pro.
Yeah,
He's the one that does manual tracking. Dmitry Filipovich is another one that does manual tracking, and their
Ooh,
charts are from watching the game. But like Evolving Wild and like Money Puck and stuff like that, it's in essence there's an algorithm that's a model, and then it pulls from the hockey locational data and stuff like that, and that's what spits out the results. But point is like, I'm like, dude, I promise you I watch more than you. Just because I use a chart to demonstrate a point, because 140 characters on Twitter isn't enough to like type it all out, it doesn't mean I didn't watch. But hey, good luck to you, Mr. I get triggered anytime someone posts a chart.
It's always funny. Like I see what you post, and I'm like, oh, let's see what this person has. Oh boy, Mr. Triggered. Yeah,
I'll say this: most people that follow me are really, really good, and I enjoy interacting with them. But you get like 5% of them that just like the second you use any sort of data in a point, or the second you try to say something like Lundkvist is better than Richter or something like that, they're just like turn into baby shit in their pants, and it's
I
hilarious.
honestly, I feel like people are afraid of the charts. Like I'll admit it. I was afraid of the charts before we had you on last year, like for the first time. I hated analytics. I
and
absolutely
and
hated it.
to your
Like I wanted nothing to
point,
do with it.
well, to your credit though, it's because a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot, but there are certain very big voices in the analytics community that are huge douchebags and talk down to everyone about it. So I don't blame folks for, you don't understand something, so it's gonna not be your thing to begin with. And then the people who do understand it are assholes to you. So of course you're gonna hate it. And so I totally get that. But it's, I mean, like in my actual day job, like for those who don't know, like I'm in essence run all the research teams at the company I work for, and we do a lot of research on like websites and stuff. And one of the big things we tell our clients, who are these big financial and insurance firms that have these sites, is like, don't you know don't you got to avoid jargon, you got to avoid super complex things on your site, because if you confuse or frustrate someone or make them feel stupid because they don't understand it, you're just going to disengage them and they're never going to log on to your site again. And it's a similar principle that applies here, is if you're just going to post a chart and then use a bunch of fancy terms and equations that people aren't going to understand, they're just going to be like, well, fuck you, and then that's it, they're against you.
Yeah, I actually called one of the analytics people out about the Lafreniere stuff.
Who?
Oh my gosh, what was the guy? The guy who's a Penguins fan. I forget his name.
A Penguins fan?
Yeah, he's a big Penguins fan. He was just saying like Lafreniere is a bust because he just got his first power play point last season. And like,
Are you talking about Jay Fresh?
yes, Jay
Yeah,
Fresh.
He's a dipshit. He's your typical. He doesn't know his ass from his elbows, and then he doesn't understand nuance, and he's your typical, all I care about is the numbers. And then his boy Patrick Bacon, who's the one who created the model that he uses,
Yes,
is an idiot
him.
too. Patrick Bacon's model is by far the worst of all the main public models out there. If you want to use like the GAR models or those like more complicated like regression model things, go to Evolving Wild, go to Money Puck, go to Natural Stat Trick. Don't go to Jay Fresh and Patrick Bacon. They really, I'm not going to get into all the details of what's wrong with it, but like the long story short is they completely overreact to like adjusting for rink bias and stuff like that, and that's what leads to their data being so much different than everyone else's.
Patrick Bacon was the one who made the model that said Brennan Othman had no scoring potential or no potential to play in the
Yeah, because
NHL.
he doesn't understand how to do league adjustments either. Yes,
Brennan Othman, hold my beer, scores 50
Mhm.
goals in the OHL.
Yep. Hmm. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. I'm starting to like. I want to understand like the chart. So I want to ask you. So like
Hmm.
the expected goals for, how is that calculated? I was looking it up. Like, and I think it was
Yeah.
Natural Stat Trick that had a glossary, and it was
Uh-huh.
saying that there's like a little. There's
Natural
like a.
Stack Trick. I got my own glossary on Blueshirts Breakaway.
I
Come
know.
on.
Yeah, I go back to that. I go back to that
Nah.
very
So
frequently, and it's like
what it
what is it like the slot area?
it's
They
called the
measure
Hoxie lexicon.
how many
So
shots are in those areas.
the way it works is, so first keep in mind expected goal models are, they're models and they can vary from one site to the next because it's a model that someone created. But long story short, what an expected goal model is it tries to weight each shot attempt by how likely this is to be a goal, and then you add it all up, and that's your expected goals over the game. So each individual shot, it's if it's in essence you turn around and just shoot it the wrong way, that's a 0, right? No chance that's going in. And then a 1 would be you're sitting in front of an empty net on the goal line and you just got a Happy Gilmore tap it in to make it in. All right, and so somewhere between 0 and 1, it's assigned a weight of how likely is this shot to be a goal. And then how that weight works is based on location and shot type and stuff like that. So if you're on like a 2-on-1 breakaway and you're shooting right from the slot right there, like that will have a higher weight than if you're just Jacob Trouba trying to bomb it from the point with 3 dudes in front of you, between you and the goalie. Location is the biggest piece of it. Some models do a better job than others of accounting for shot type, like is it a one-timer, is a wrister, stuff like that. Some models try to adjust for shooting talent, but there's a lot of argument over in essence saying like there's only a couple players where shooting talent really matters, and with everyone else it kind of all is around the mean. But there's nuances in how exactly it's going to be calculated. But the long story short is expected goals is the shot attempt times how likely is this shot attempt to be a goal.
And that comes from how likely it is to be a goal. That's a number taken from, I guess, like the average of
So
in that
it's
spot
yeah. So the
across all
NHL.
the NHL games.
Well, there's a couple things. So the NHL, every arena, they have like their stat counters and stuff. Not only are they counting when a shot's taken place, but they're accounting for where on the ice is this shot taken. And then they're also logging what kind of shot was it? Was it like a slap shot? Was it a wrist shot? Was it a one time or stuff like that? So there's a pretty complex equation where it's taking into account where on the ice was the shot taken, what was the game state, what kind of shot was it, and then that goes into this little equation, then spit out this is how likely this was to be a goal. Now, the big difference between public models, which are using this NHL shot data, and private models like Steve Valiquette's ClearSight Analytics is private models are paying people to actually track this themselves. So private models will be taking into account things like the goalie moving. So like Valiquette preaches a lot, like, if you're making the goalie move left or right, that's actually going to increase the chances a lot if this is going to be a goal or not. Public models can't do that. That's not built into the NHL data that they're pulling from. Private models are accounting for that. And so that's why you'll sometimes see really big differences between like Steve Valiquette's data on ClearSight Analytics and a public, Evolving Wild or something like that. I don't know, I can't actually say all. The vast majority of NHL teams have private data. They're either compiling it themselves or they're paying a site like ClearSight Analytics to give it to them. The New York Rangers have their own analytics team. They have their own models and they compile all this data themselves.
So basically, what you're telling me is not all scoring chances are created equally.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so a no screen wrist shot from Jacob Trouba from the blue line is a lot
Not a
less
scoring
likely to
chance.
score than Julien Gauthier putting his shoulder down well, actually, maybe that's the
Well, you
same
picked
thing
a
because
real
we
bad
know that.
example saying
Yeah.
Julien Gauthier, but
Yeah.
let's say it's much less than like Alexei Lafreniere breaking out, deking the defender. Now he's right in front of the goalie.
Right. Okay. So so what you said in the beginning, it's between 0 and 1, and it's assigned
Yes.
a number based. So okay, so
It's a
it
likelihood of it
increment.
being a goal, 1 being 100% chance of being a goal,
I
0
see.
being 0% chance of being a goal.
I see. And so with the bar charts, when there is a higher expected goals for, that means there's more chances that that player is like the Z score table
Usually, so those are on ice. So it's saying
on
when the
ice.
player is on the ice, the team generates a lot more expected goals, scoring chance. Scoring chances is a fine proxy for expected goals. So it's like, yes, if you're looking at like the Evolving Wild charts, it's if that XGF bar is really high, it's saying when this player is on the ice relative to his teammates. That's one thing that's important too with the Evolving Wild charts. Their RAPM data, it's all relative to teammates. So it's an equation that tries to the best it can strip out teammate effects. So it's a pretty complex equation that takes into account how much time are you on the ice with certain players, and then therefore trying to isolate like how do you do regardless of who you're with, right? So relative to teammate, how does your team do in generating scoring chances? That's XGF chart.
So is Corsi a good stat or analytic to look at? Is that a simpler stat or no? Am
It's
I
simpler, but
complete?
it's less. It's simpler, but it's less effective.
So
10 years
it's
ago,
okay.
and when all like the analytics wars were happening, it's because Corsi was really the only actual analytic we have, and Corsi is proven to be a much better predictor of future success than just goals, and so that's why everyone globbed onto it. Like, oh well, it's proven. It's in the math. Corsi, and for those that don't know, Corsi is just shot attempts. It doesn't matter if it is on goal, if it's blocked
Blocked or
or
unblocked, right?
yeah. Corsi is blocked or unblocked shot attempts. Fenwick is
Yeah.
just unblocked
Mhm.
shot attempts. Corsi was named after Jim Corsi, goalie coach. He felt strongly, he was the one that created the stat. He felt strongly that the best way to measure goalie workload was to look at how many shot attempts are they facing, because regardless if the shot's coming on net or not, the goalie's going to have to be moving and reacting. That's where the stat came from. And then it was proven that Corsi was a better predictor of future results than just goals or just shots on goal. And so that's why it became so popular. Expected goals is the next evolution. It's not just looking at shot attempts, but it's now weighting all the shot attempts with how likely is it to
Ah,
become a goal.
I see. So just instead of just hogging the puck around or just throwing the puck at net. Like you could have a shift where you just throw the puck from the blue line at net on net like 5 times, and that's just
Yeah, and
it
and the
doesn't tell
Carolina
the whole thing.
Hurricanes are yeah, and the Carolina Hurricanes are a good example of this. When you watch our playoff, series against them, like Carolina very much subscribes to the just shoot the puck from anywhere and hopefully we'll get a couple lucky bounces and they go in. Whereas the Rangers, especially under
They're very
Quinn,
picky. Yeah, they were very picky.
exactly. Yeah,
Yep.
and so
I
it's the
see.
opposite end of the spectrum. The truth is probably lies somewhere in the middle. Like, yeah, don't be so picky because you do just need volume and you do get a lot of goals just by lucky shit happening. But you don't just want to be constantly bombing it from the point. Like you do want to try to at
Mm,
least get somewhat of a decent shot on
yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think the Rangers are a bit picky because they're unselfish. They like to set each other up. I see that a lot.
Mhm.
But yeah. Also, taking bombs from the point always is not the best strategy because what happens if a player blocks it and recovers for a breakaway
Yeah,
going the
I
other
mean,
way?
a shot
I've
from
seen
the
that happen
point
so
is
many times.
it does. A shot from the point is fine if you have someone in front of the net. So if like Kreider has established himself clearly in front of the net, cool, go for it. He's either going to screen the goalie, he's going to try to tip it. It can create chaos in front of the net. But Truba just so often just shoots it into the damn shins of the dude in front of him, and then it's like, oh crap! Now it's a breakaway the other way.
Mhm.
And I keep saying this, like I like Truba. I don't mean to come across like I'm shitting on him, but it's just that Tampa series. I think is just like burned into all of our minds.
Well, he's captain now, so hopefully he turns it around. I mean,
He's
overall,
I tell you
I
what,
would you say
he
was
is
that his
captain.
best Okay, he is captain, but
I mean, like he's
would you?
captain material is what I meant. Like that team loves him.
Yeah.
That
Oh
dude
yeah.
is like the epitome of like if you were just to put on paper, what do you want in a room from a leader? That's Jacob Truba.
Yeah, I love his how he is like off ice. I love all that, and parts of his game I truly love. It's just the dumb penalties and stepping up at inopportune
Yeah.
times is annoying, and then the shots into the shins of the defender
Yeah.
that's literally
He,
right on top of you.
yeah. He certainly is not the highest IQ player, that's for sure.
Yeah,
He's kind of like Kreider in that he has a lot of very he's got a lot of raw physical skills, but he's just sometimes like, dude, what are you thinking?
not all players can be as smart as Adam Fox, so we're spoiled in
Yep,
that
yep,
department.
and that's the right example. Adam Fox. I mean, and this is one of the things I used to argue about people when he's a prospect is people didn't like him so much because he didn't like have that wow factor when you watched him. I'm like, you got to understand what you're watching. Adam Fox is smarter than everyone on the ice he's playing against, and that is the key to his game. That's
Yeah,
the key to Sidney
if I
Crosby's game too. Like Sidney Crosby, like obviously he's got high end skill, but like he's not Connor McDavid in terms of his just like jump off the screen skill level. He's just smarter than everyone he's playing against, and that allows him to do so much of what he does.
Especially now at this point in Crosby's
Yeah.
career, like, he's been through so much, and it's kinda like the Tom Brady effect, like, as you get older, I don't know, you get the Scherzer effect, like, I don't know, I think Gary Cohen was talking about how Scherzer okay, you could go ahead and laugh at
Let's
me
go
for
with a real one. Andy Pettit. Let's use
Oh,
Andy
okay,
Pettit as an
fine.
example here. Andy Pettit was throwing 85 miles an hour on his fastball as a 41-year-old, but still a really effective pitcher just because he completely was able to outthink all the batters he was facing.
Alright. Okay, yeah, there you go, that works too. That's a good example.
You're a good host. If I was on Blueshirts Breakaway and said that, Greg would have started screaming at me right now.
No, I don't mind it any I don't get this whole Mets Yankees, like, the hate.
I know.
The
I'm
only
kidding.
hate I reserve my hate for the Phillies and the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, I mean, I get it because I mean, listen, I'm a Yankee fan, and the Yankee fans are easily one of the most obnoxious fan bases in all of sports. And so I get hating the Yankees the same way. Reason why I hate the Eagles in football is because, like, I don't necessarily hate the Philadelphia Eagles. I hate their fans, and so that's why I understand like a lot of my Met fan friends hating the Yankees.
Well, the Mets have been the butt of the joke for such a long time, so I've just been used to it.
You know
So,
what?
I
They're
mean,
fun now, though.
yeah.
All kidding aside, this year has been a fun year. If only they could stay healthy.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been a journey. It sucks that
Yeah,
I wasn't able to witness a good portion of it when the Rangers were in the playoffs because when the Rangers were in the playoffs, that
yeah,
was all that was on my TV. I'm
yeah,
sorry. Like that's it. That's all that I could do. It
yeah.
was uh it was incredible and I mean the Mets have just clinched for the first time since 2016. A postseason berth. So that's only the 10th time in like what 60 years? God, 60 years of existence. That's only like the 10th time they've ever been in the playoffs. That's sad. That's sad.
I think the Yankees have made the playoffs like almost every year of my existence, except for every year of at least my existence in which I can remember things, except for like 2 years, and I'm 34 years old.
Like the
Just turned 34 yesterday.
Oh, happy birthday, Drew.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess those 2 years were what? The
I mean, in the late
13,
'80s,
14.
they were the Bronx. The late
Oh,
'80s, they were
that,
the
but
Bronx Zoo, but I ignore that. But yeah, it's a couple years ago. They missed the playoffs for like the first time in what, like 15 years. But like, what Jeter hit the stage in what 94, 95, 96, I think, and like they missed the playoffs. I don't think once in his existence, and it was fun. Definitely, I can understand why so many Yankee fans are spoiled. That's for sure.
it's certainly a good year for both teams. I'd love to see a Mets-Yankees World Series for
I made
sure.
a lot of money in I think it was sixth grade in when the Yankees played the Mets, and I was in my advisory class in middle school. There were a bunch of Met fans, and I bet all of them $10 that the Yankees would win the series. And in middle school, winning $60 is a lot of money.
Yeah, it is, it
That
is.
Mets team had no fucking business being in the World Series. I couldn't tell you who the hell their outfield was to this day, but good for them for somehow making it there. But that Yankees team was so much better on paper.
Yeah, I mean, that was the 3rd of 3 consecutive World Series, and they almost had a
Can
4th
you tell
one.
who were the outfielders of the Mets then?
Benny Agbayani. Yeah.
But yeah.
I don't know center field. I know the infield was beastly.
Well, they had
Al
what was it?
Alfonso.
Alfonso, yeah.
I was just
Oh yeah,
born. I
you're a
wasn't even
baby.
a
That's
year
right.
old. I wasn't
That's
even
right.
a year old.
Jesus Christ. What year were you born?
2000.
I hate you. We're gonna hang up now.
Oh, man. Um, so I wanted to go in there's our short baseball talk for the week. I wanted to talk so now that training camp is underway, I saw and going back to triggered, people on Twitter, Facebook, whatever, I saw people flipping out because Sammy Blais is on the first line with Carter and revenge. Listen, people, we haven't even gotten to game 1 of the regular season. We haven't even gotten to game 1 of the preseason. How are you flipping out right now? This isn't game 82 of
Uh,
the regular season or game
uh,
7 of the
yeah.
finals. Like,
My
just this is the time for
well,
experimenting. I want to see what happens. Come on, Kravtsov's on the second line. I didn't
a
expect that. I want to
thou
see that.
so you just said this is time for experimenting, and I couldn't agree more. We know what works already. So worst case, if whatever the experimenting is doesn't work, you can revert back to what already works. This is the time to experiment. And I would say beyond that, and I tweeted this the other day, and I really mean it. We need to stop thinking of things like, well, this is the best player, so he deserves to be on the top line. No, there's tons of data and studies out there that show that it's best to spread your talent at least across your top 2 lines. If your coach isn't a dipshit, across your top 3 lines works fine too. I understand the reservations of whether or not Gallant's going to play the third line enough, but let's just table that for a second. What's far more important than just, hey, best player equals top line is, do these players' skill sets fit together properly? And if we're going to continue to just insist that the Zibanejad and Kreider belong together, which that's the first change I'd make for what it's worth, is split those two up. But if we're going to insist that they need to play together, Kreider is a power forward who's a shooter, and he occupies the net front. Zibanejad is a shooter who occupies the slots in like the middle of the ice. You can't put another shooter who needs to be in the front of the ice, in the front of the net, or in the middle of the ice on that line. That is what Capo Caco is. I agree in a vacuum that Capo Caco deserves a shot on the top line, given his skill set and given who else is on the right wing. But he's a terrible, terrible fit with Kreider and Zibanejad. And to be honest, I don't think we have what we would like to be on that top line. Well, I mean, if we could redo the Blade trade and get Pavel Buchnevich back, he'd be perfect. But
Oh my
point
god.
is you need a playmaker. If you have a power forward net front presence and a shooter from the slot in the middle of the ice, you need someone who can create space for them and get them the puck. That isn't Capo Caco. I don't think that's Sammy Blais, but I'm at least willing to try it out for a bit. It could be Alexis Lafreniere, but Lafreniere has been on record saying he's much more comfortable on the left side than the right side. It could be Kravtsov. I'd like to see him get a shot, but like the point is we don't really have the top line right winger that you need if you're going to insist that our top line needs to be shooting center, power forward, shooting left wing.
Right. So
Um,
you're saying there's no definitive answer as of right now if Kreider and Zibanejad stay together.
correct.
And
If to,
you want to what would it look like if they were split up? Where would you put Kreider then?
I mean, I'm open to a lot of different answers. I don't think there's a one answer only. And like people who tweet like this should be the lineup, shut the fuck up. Like there's a lot. This team, one of the strengths of the Rangers is they're a pretty versatile team, and I think there are a lot of different things you can do with it. But I personally, I would put one of our playmaking left wings with Panarin, and to allow for more versatility in terms of what you can put on the right wing. So if you had a line of Panarin, Zibanejad, Kakko, I think that could be a phenomenal top line. Just as a for instance, not saying that's the only answer, but I think that could be a great top line. And then second line roll with
Right.
Trocheck in the center, who is kind of a Swiss Army knife, can kind of do it all. And then you can put, Kreider or Lafreniere on the left wing, and then you can put Kravtsov or Blay or whoever on the right wing, and then the third line being Hedel, and then the remainder of your top nine. I think if you split Kreider into Zibanejad, you just have a lot more options of what you can do on each of those lines.
You got me hook, line, and sinker as soon as you put Panarin and Kakko in the same breath.
I'm not getting started on the fucking Rick Carpinello rumors that Panarin doesn't like playing with Kakko, but
You don't think you don't think that's true?
I don't know if it's true or not. I just refuse to engage in that conversation. I've heard from
Okay.
people I really trust that there's some teeth to that argument. And all kidding aside, I get a lot of people don't like Rick Carpinello. He's not the type that would put something out like that just because he wants to stir the shit. He's clearly heard that from somewhere if he's putting it out. I just, it's stupid. And I don't have the energy at this point
Yeah,
to engage in that conversation right now.
I see. Yeah, so we'll table that discussion for another day for sure. Because I have brought that up a few times trying to find some answers, and I haven't been able to get a definitive answer. If
I've
that's
been
the thing.
told by people I trust it's true. I've been told by people I trust it's there was a comment made, but it's been overblown. And I've been told by people I trust that it's bullshit. So I
You
don't
don't
know
know
what
what
the
to
answer
think.
is, and I'm old now and don't have the energy
Okay.
to engage in that.
Okay. All right. So the big thing I think the thing that stands out to me with going back to these line combos, Kravtsov on the second line, just to try that out. Instead, I had assumed Kako was going to go there, but since there might be some substance to that argument, then Kravtsov is there, and that means the kid line is still there
I'll say this:
on the thing.
Kravtsov is really, really fucking good. Like this kid
Yeah, I always liked
is
him.
he is a dynamic playmaker with a good shot. He's big and physical, and he can also play defense once he learns the system. Like he is every bit deserving of a shot in the top six, just in a vacuum. And so I just want to put that out there where it's like I understand. Like okay, I love Kako. I got a bunch of Kako hockey cards, and if he does well, those will skyrocket in value. So trust me, I'm very invested in him doing well. But just Kravtsov is really, really good, and it's totally fine to give him a shot too.
And again, like you said before, this would all work out if Gallant uses all the lines, if he rolls all three lines. Ideally, everybody's playing well, and so everybody's gonna get solid ice time. So, that's what I want to see
Yeah.
happening. Like
What one thing I'll
I want to
say
see
too,
that.
man, is
Yeah.
we can have a really good fourth line if we want to. Like Ryan Carpenter is a really good player. He is your prototypical. He can play defense, win faceoffs, and not make mistakes. He is exactly what you want in a fourth line center. And then we can
He
talk shit all we
wins faceoffs too.
yeah, he's a good overall player. He
Okay.
does everything you need in a fourth line center.
Nothing matters,
And
but
then
okay.
we can talk shit all we want about Goudreau's contract. He's a great fourth line winger if you have
Right,
him on the
right,
fourth line.
exactly.
And then we got I mean Blake could be down there if need, but like there's a whole host of guys that could be
On
down on the fourth Hunt, and obviously
Reed Dahl's
Reeves.
easy.
Yeah, well, right all
Yeah.
also can be a really good fourth line center. Like he is a big physical dude who loves pissing off the opponent that has a powerful shot. Go YouTube some of his like just the shots he makes. Like he kind of who's that kid, that prospect on the Kings that like won like the hardest shot competition? It's like he's got like a hair under his shot, but also can actually play hockey.
Oh wait, what was that?
I forget his name. I just know he's an Alan
Yeah.
Walsh client because the Steve Dangle
Okay.
podcast always jokes about him. Like Alan Walsh client, whatever his
Wh-
name is. No, what the hell's it? Martin Ferk.
Ferk. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, like, but Rydall's a really good player too. Like we have a lot of options to have an actually good fourth line if we decide to go with just your modern, hard to play against fourth line instead of the we got to beat people up fourth line.
Was that you on Blueshirts Breakaway that was saying that Rydal was coming over from what was it, Sweden? It was around the draft. You were talking about the prospects or whatever, and that the Rangers brought him over. And he's older, right? He's not like 24. He's like
Yeah, so
27, 28.
they had me on before the draft on the chat about like some of the who could we target? I said Adam Sikora. This is the first time ever on that podcast. One of my deep targets we actually drafted. I was so happy when we drafted Sikora. But yes, I spoke about Rydall and I said he came off. He's a bit older. He's 24, 25, something like that. But he is big, strong, mean, loves being the agitator. Like if you watch some of his clips, like he's laughing as the opponents are just getting pissed at him. He will be a fan favorite if he makes a team, but he's also got some skill. Like he's a bit slow. He's an okay playmaker. He's okay in the defensive zone, but he's got an absolute bomb of a shot. He's good enough to be a fourth line center in the NHL. I'll say that much.
Okay. And so I think there was a conversation in that episode that, they brought him over. They pulled him from Sweden, like, and he wouldn't have signed if he didn't know that, like, he was getting a shot on the team, right? Like,
yeah, and this was before we signed Ryan Carpenter. Or I keep saying Ryan His name's Ryan, right? Or am I
yeah,
confusing with the baseball
yes,
player?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's Matt
Matt
Carpenter
Carpenter. Okay,
on the
yeah.
Yankees. How do you screw that up? Come on, he's your player.
No, he sucks.
He had a
Yeah,
renaissance
but
this year, but go ahead.
fuck him. This is before we signed Ryan Carpenter, who also was a really, really good fourth line center. But yeah, at the time, the mentality was like, this kid's not deciding to, because he was making a decent amount in the SHL, had a good contract, playing at home. Like, if you're a good player in the SHL, you're making a fine living. It's not like they're like, you got to have side jobs or something like that if you're playing the SHL and you're a good player. And so the mentality was, and this wasn't just me and Greg and Ryan saying this, this was Vince said this was a couple people we've all spoken to have said this. Like, yeah, he agreed to come over for the same reason why the Maple Leafs have gotten certain guys to come over too. It's because they were told, like, you will have a legitimate shot to make this roster if you come over. And if you wind up in the AHL, you're still at least going to be making $700,000, $800,000. So, but yes, he was brought over under the premise of he's got a legitimate shot of cracking the roster. But this was before a couple other signings occurred.
I honestly, I think Ryan Reeves' spot, whether you like it, agree with it or not, is locked up on the line.
Yeah,
We've seen
you're
Gallant
probably
go
you're
with him.
probably right. Yeah, you're probably right. And Ryan Reeves is one of the best people in the NHL.
Uh-huh.
There is no
Oh,
debate that in terms of just good dude rankings, Ryan Reeves is top tier. Uh, but I think it's fair to say I think his actual NHL contributing days might largely
he's
be
about
behind
$1
him.
million too expensive.
It's not even that. It's
$1.75 million healthy scratch.
if I'm being honest, like I think he's better suited to be assistant coach right now than he is to be an everyday roster player. And I love him. Like
Oh my gosh, yeah, I love him
I
too. It's
don't
just,
mean to
yeah.
come across like I'm shitting on him, but he's just not good at hockey anymore. And it's not his fault. He's old and has logged tons and tons of miles and tough miles. But all the things that people say why he's on the roster. Oh, the team loves him. He brings his energy, brings his locker room presence. Can't you do that as the assistant coach too?
Yeah, so that would be interesting. I mean, I wouldn't mind that. But although our group of coaches is pretty pretty solid. I
No,
like
I
him.
know, I know.
To have him there
I
as on the cheerleader on the
I'm not
sidelines there.
I'm not going to be that guy that cries if Reeves is in the lineup just because again, he's a wonderful, wonderful human being, and
Uh-huh.
I'm totally fine with just giving him that last shot. But if we're being honest, he's going to be getting that spot over someone that is a better hockey player at this point in their careers than he is.
Right. Yeah. So that's what I think that's inevitable. I think the writing
Mhm.
is on the wall for that. It
Mhm.
Riedel or Rydell, however you pronounce it, that he could play as well. He could just have like 10 goals in the preseason, and I don't think he's making it.
Well, he
Well,
was a
maybe
center.
actually, yeah, Oscar Lindberg. Oscar Lindberg went on a tear, but so
Yeah,
like
then
maybe he
Vegas
could do
claimed
something.
him instead of Derek Stepan in the
Right.
expansion draft.
Right. So many dumb moves by those expansion teams. I don't know what Seattle was thinking. They had a whole lot of people they could have picked.
Vegas did pretty good given the haul and trades they did. Yeah, Seattle, I have no idea what they were doing.
Right. We all thought Giordano was going to the Rangers, and all of a sudden nothing happened.
Well, that's because we all believe some dipshit beat reporter.
And Frank Saravalli predicted half the moves before they even happened.
Just listen to
That
Shayna
was funny.
Goldberg. Shayna Goldberg gets most of it right before most of the big insiders.
I remember I remember Shayna got the Shea trade.
Did I
Like
say
the
Goldberg?
first
Isn't it's Goldman? Am I being? Yeah,
I
it's
I
definitely Shayna
don't
Goldman.
know. I
Yeah, it's
don't
Shayna
know.
Gold.
I know
I'm
it's
being an
Shayna.
asshole. Shayna is the best. I can't, despite me being an absolute jackass and getting her name wrong right now. Um, yeah, she is a wonderful writer, a really good person. I've interacted with her a bunch. She's truly great. And then on top of that, like she's beaten the insiders. She was the first one to say Nils Lundkvist was traded. And I get like people are doing that typical thing, oh, well, what are the terms or whatever. She was first in terms of saying Lundkvist is going um to Dallas. And I can't recommend people follow her and read her stuff enough.
Mhm. I gotta get her on the podcast one of these days. Corey Schneider too. Not the goalie Corey Schneider, but the
I know what you
analytics
mean.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mr.
it is Shanna. It
Dweezil.
is. I
Oh,
just literally Googled it on my phone. It is Shanna Goldman, and now I feel like an asshole and a borderline anti-Semite for calling her Shayna Goldberg instead of Shayna Goldman. My deepest apologies for that.
all right. Well, you issued your public apology, so we have it recorded. Everybody knows that it's here, and it's not getting edited out or anything.
No,
It's not
don't
like,
edit it out. It
of
was
course
me being
not.
an idiot, but it's
I'm just joking.
yep, she's wonderful and I'm an idiot.
Shayna, we want you on the podcast, next podcast guest. That'd be great. Right after we get Steve Valiquette back on here for the first time.
That won't happen because MSG
I
doesn't let him go on.
Yeah, yeah.
I've
It was
literally I chat with him here and there. He's told me like, yeah, MSG doesn't let him go on unless it's like Barstool or some stupid ass podcast that has like a true affiliation with them.
Yeah, chicklets when all they do is talk about hockey players' dicks and stuff that no one wants to talk
Ryan
about.
Whitney is the dumbest motherfucker who has any sort of actual platform in hockey, and I will fight anyone who disagrees with me on that.
I don't like to like knock on other people's like content and content
I will.
creation or
Ryan
whatever,
Whitney is
but
an
yeah.
idiot, and people who think that he's worth listening to are also idiots.
I like the
Biz,
Sean I like the
I
Sean
was
Avery episode and the
yeah,
Yandle episode,
they
but
have
aside from
they
that,
have
it's just
wonderful interviews. Their interviews are
yeah.
great. And Biz, he's not my personal taste, but like he's got talent as a content producer. Ryan Whitney's just an idiot who sounds like his nose has been broken 3 too many times.
Maybe a couple of pucks to the head. I don't know. Bissonnette, he's talented, but not in hockey. That's for sure.
Again, like I said, not necessarily my style, but I can understand the appeal for him. I don't understand for the life of me why anyone likes Ryan Whitney.
Yeah. But again, like those interviews, some of them were great. Like the Brian
Yeah,
Burke interview about the Nail Yakupov. That's like one of the
that's
most iconic podcast clips I've
yeah.
ever watched.
I won't ever criticize someone for liking their pod because their interviews are fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. That stuff is so cool to me. Like
Mhm.
that was always what I wanted. But now I appreciate talking about analytics because I'm educating myself, and I
Mhm.
hope my viewers or my listeners. Oh yeah, go subscribe on YouTube. By the way, Ice Cold Takes Pod. Got to throw that in there.
Yeah,
I
and
I hope I hope that people are open to, learning more about analytics because
well,
I do enjoy it. I don't want to be a boomer. Like I feel like
maybe a
something
boomer.
internally
You're
makes
so
me
young,
feel
you're
like
like barely Gen Z, and you're like, "I don't wanna be a boomer."
like not like a boomer in that
I know, I'm
thinking. You know what
busting
I
your
mean?
chops. No,
I need a big skate. I need a big guy that could lay the body. But
no,
what if
it's
he can't skate?
like I said, I understand why so many people are immediately kinda deterred by analytics, whether it's some of the jerks that really are high up in that community, or it's just, a gut reaction to when you don't understand and people aren't willing to explain it to you. I totally get it, but I, I'm here to help. If anyone ever wants to understand it more or anything like that, I'm more than happy to do my best to try to explain it to me. To try to explain for me to try to explain it to them. Just you clap at me once with the watch the game thing, and you're cut off. That's the only thing I'll say
Mhm.
because I promise you, I watch the game more games than anyone who says that to me.
That's the thing, you gotta give it a chance, like, I had never given it a chance until we had Drew on last year with Kyriakos. Shout out to Kyriakos if he's listening. Drew, you probably still can't pronounce his name, but,
I probably can't, but I do remember him. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
He got super busy with like school and real life stuff, right?
yeah, he's doing research at, oh my gosh, what's the hospital? I can't even, Sloan
Mm.
Kettering Hospital,
Sloan
so
Kettering.
yeah,
Yeah, no, good for him, and wish
yeah.
him the best if he's listening.
Yeah, but yeah, I had never given analytics a chance until I had you on and listened to how you explained it, and then I read, just reading a little bit of the lexicon, the glossary that you have on Blueshirts Break .com. That which is great by the way.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, that was just enough to help me see. Oh, okay, this is what it is, and then of course listening to Valcat explain and I like before the games, during pregame and stuff.
Valaket is wonderful at putting pretty complex concepts and like data stuff in just plain terms. And
Mhm.
yeah, he's the best. I can't say enough good things about Steve Valket. Great guy, always willing to engage with fans. Has helped me multiple times when I put together this like beginner's guide to goaltender analytics. Like I DM'd him, and that was the first time I ever spoke to him, and he helped me like create that. Like, and he didn't know who the hell I was or anything like that. And that was back when I had like 600 followers. Like
Mhm.
I wasn't even any sort of name at all on New York Rangers Twitter. He's a genuine dude who's super smart and great at explaining this stuff to people. So Steve Valaket is a true G.
Yeah, and it only took me 14 days of me asking for him. It took 81 days to ask Kevin Weeks to come on the show before I got a response, but no, I'm kidding, I'm kidding. But yeah, like
You did
that's
at
true.
least get a response from him.
I did get a response from Valaket, and he said he would do it, but that MSG
He's
wouldn't let him.
yeah, and that's and again, it's and I hope everyone understands. Like that's the truth. Like Valaket, if it was up to him, he would do all this stuff. He genuinely
Yeah.
likes people. MSG PR is a bunch of old white curmudgeons.
Uh-huh. Yeah. It's unfortunate, but Drew, thanks for doing the show with me again. You're always welcome on. I'm probably gonna ask you to come on many times this season, fill in
Um,
as a guest.
always happy to help, Joey. You're doing a really good job with this, by the way. Like, I just want to say that I am impressed with like the improvements you've made and the job you're doing. So, keep up the good work and happy to come on and help out.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much for the kind words. It means a lot coming from you, especially because you work for the best Rangers podcast out there. I think Blueshirts Breakaway is Greg and Ryan are the men, the guys, the kings. They're the goats of all this. They're guys I look up to. So having you say that, that means so much to me. I really
Yep,
appreciate it.
absolutely. It's the truth. All right, man.
All
Thanks for
right.
having me on.
Take it easy. Have a good one.
You too.